Welcome back, guys, to SMD Fishing. Welcome back to the channel, and thank you for tuning in if you're new to the channel. I'm way overdue on this video. That's the last video of this series, my beginner's guide crash course to bass fishing. It's a really short, quick course. I'll leave a link up to that course up above. When I say course, to that playlist. It's a really quick breakdown. If you guys want to get into bass fishing, I try to keep it super simple, super easy, budget friendly. I'm not trying to tell you to go buy, $400, $500, rod setup as your first purchase. Maybe later on down the line, if you want to do that. Yeah, up to you. But that course, or that crash course, will definitely get you started in bass fishing. Like I said, try to keep it super simple, super easy. Something anyone can follow. And to get you start catching fish. So this is the last video of this series, or of this crash course. It's going to be, as you guys read the title, where should I go to start bass fishing? And I'm going to talk about super simple places, super simple situations, throw in a few baits maybe, starting with people who fish a pond, people who want to fish in a kayak, and people who, have a boat, or have a buddy, or if they have a person with a boat, probably the person with the boat should know where to go. I don't know. But you could be a first-time boat owner. You could have bought you a John boat, could have bought you, Nitro Z21, and you want to get into bass fishing. To each his own, right? All right, so first thing for the people who, want to fish the pond. 9 times out of 10, your pond is going to be a, pretty shallow body of water. So you're not looking at, fishing super deep, 20, 30 feet of water, things like that. Most ponds, maybe in that 10-foot range as far as deepest sections. Maybe some a little deeper. But 9 times out of 10, a pond is usually shallower than any other major body of water. So for people who want to fish a pond, what I recommend, it's simple as it may sound, but beat the bank. That's the best thing I can tell you to do, is beat the bank. A couple baits I would say to beat the bank with. Let's open up my handy dandy tackle box here. So for the pond people, on the first couple baits I'm going to say, I'm just going to give you maybe 2 or 3. But this is Z-Man chatterbait. Definitely, if you guys can see that, make sure you get a nice clear shot of it. Z-Man chatterbait. Something really simple to throw that you can cover a lot of water with. That's a great bait in the pond to cover water, stay out of the muck and grime of the grassy area of the pond. But yes, you can chuck that thing a mile, cover a lot of water, and it looks like a bluegill pattern as far as that greenish, maybe a little chartreuse colors to it. Chatterbaits are a great bait, like I said, to cover water real quick. Another one, maybe a crankbait. If you guys can see that. Little crankbait there. Just in case your pond doesn't have a lot of, muck and grime at the bottom, then yes, you could use crankbait, things like that. Bring it off the bottom if you got a little rock or silt bottom. Those are really good to use too. Those are just 2 baits right there. Oh yeah, and definitely for sure. And the pond guys, you throw you some jigs out there. That one's by Strike King. I'm sorry. That first chatterbait's Z-Band chatterbait. The crankbait is a Strike King 1.5. I think it's green gizzard shad color. Right here is this is a football head jig. You don't need to throw football. Try to get a better one. There you go. There's your regular flipping head jig there. There's your regular jig there. Looks kind of like that. But throw a jig around, or one of my favorite is a Texas rig. This is your Texas rig. Okay, looks a little like that. There you go. Monster on it. Monster, baby. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I'm talking about. I knew it was a freaking tank near it. I knew it. That's a monster there. Just a matter of time. Just a little rage-tail bug. Creature bait. And you want to try your best to parallel the bank as best you can, okay? Try not to get hung up, if you got like overhanging trees and out there, try your best not to get hung up. It takes the fun out of fishing if you're getting hung up. It's part of it. It'll happen here and there, but try your best not to get hung up. That's one thing for the pond guys. Like I said, beat the bank. Come summertime, gets a little hotter. Then you want to try throwing out towards the deeper sections, okay? Not saying you won't catch them up on the bank. A lot of fish like to go a little deeper when it comes summertime, because the surface temperature of the pond is a lot hotter than what it would be deeper. So they want to get into cooler water, stay cool, just like you want to stay cool. So also shade spots. You got ponds that have like overhang trees, things like that. try fishing up in those shade areas. It's a little cooler than out in, you know, open body of water. Try to find, if you can find a little deeper area. You can find those deeper areas by using a jig. Once you find the deeper area, then you can use something like small, you know, swim baits to throw out there to go across those deeper areas. So little bluegill swim baits like that, those are pretty good in ponds as well. But otherwise, that's like the main two things I can say when you start pond fishing. Beat the bank. Definitely when it gets warmer outside, try to fish a little deeper. Also, when it gets warm, you might get some ponds that have matted grass or matted vegetation, lily pads, things like that. Where is she at? Flipping frog. Frog goes to work. Okay, on any areas that you can't, get a bait to, you got a heavy mat over top of it. Yes, frog for heavy vegetation. Like I said, lily pads, things like that. That's it. That's for ponds. Like I said, beat the bank, using text rig, using moving baits. Something super simple. I think pond fishing can be some of the easiest fishing you can do. Besides being on a huge body of water where you got to figure out different things. But at least in a pond, they're somewhere in there. Okay, whether it be shallow, whether it be deeper in the deeper sections of the pond, but they're in there. So that's where to start fishing for pond people. Like I said, especially if you have ponds that have trees that may fall into it, definitely hit those trees with the Texas rig, things like that. You'll definitely catch them. So for the people who purchase a kayak and they want to get into bass fishing, I started in ponds, but I eventually bought a kayak later. When I actually made some money, got a job, made some money to get a kayak. But so for the kayak people, where do you want to start? It's kind of the same premise of a pond as far as beating the bank. But as you get further into pond fishing, as you get further into bass fishing, you learn more about electronics. Then your electronics will also lead you to know where to fish. Okay, but I would definitely recommend along the same lines, same premise of a pond person. Definitely beat the bank with those baits that I mentioned earlier. The one good thing about a kayak, you can actually travel a lot further, further distances to go find fish. And then a boat can go even further past that, of course, or at least faster. I know some people who travel far with kayaks. But I would definitely recommend you guys, any laydowns you see, when I say laydown, any tree that's falling over into the water, areas that have rock banks, definitely want to target those rock banks with jig, crankbaits, and other baits that are great presentations for the applications you have in front of you. Definitely recommend earlier in the year, you're gonna definitely tackle some rocks, find the wood, things like that. Things that'll warm up quicker in the springtime. Then once it starts to get a little warmer, about summertime, then you guys definitely tackle the vegetation. When I say high vegetation, things that have created mats out there in the open, like places that people from the bank can't reach. Lily pad fields. I've seen many people pull out some great fish out of lily pad fields, throwing that frog or throwing a small swim bait. Ooh, my Jesus. Did I say another hog? They throw things like an underspin. An underspin is technically weedless. Okay, I just got hit by that, but I didn't tuck it in. I don't know if you can see that hook come out there. There you go. So there's a hook up under there. But they tuck that little hook up inside the bait. But you throw this through lily pad fields, things like that, or up near cover near area where lay down is at. And again, a lot of other baits go into play: chatterbaits, jigs, and it's a whole slew of things. What I would definitely recommend for kayak people: venture out to those places where the person from the bank can't reach. Okay, that's first things first. Use that kayak to your advantage. You can get in skinny waters that boats can't go to. That's another thing I love about kayak. But again, target any type of trees that are hanging out into the water, especially if you have a kayak that has, like my kayak has a Garmin Striker 4, which is a small GPS unit, GPS sonar unit, and all I wanted it was just to show me the depth. If you can get out and get into a place where, let's say a little cove or a cut that has, 8 to 10 feet of water into it, and you got a large tree hanging out into that 8-foot water, perfect area to try to fish. I don't recommend throwing out into the middle as it When I say out in the middle, let's say you have a small canal and you got trees on, this side, trees on that side. I don't necessarily fish the middle. I'm not saying you can never catch a fish out there. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is bass like to sit beside structure, or something that they can, kind of lean against, or I say lean, they can touch to say, hey, okay, I'm safe here. Or also in areas that they like to hide up in so they can ambush fish, ambush bait that comes by. So that's why you target trees. That's why you target tall grass, things like that, grass that might be sticking up out of the water, but it looks like enough space where a fish can go hide into it. Throw that Texas rig up in there. Throw that jig up in the tall grass. You'll definitely catch some fish. Again, use that kayak to advantage. Go out, find some places where people can't reach from the bank. Target the areas that are that have, like I said, trees, grass, lily pads, things like that. Those fish are going to be up in it, hiding in it, so they can wait for bait fish to come by and pursue. And last but not least, the guys with the boat. Where should you go first when you get your boat? Well, first things first, I would recommend definitely know the rules and regulations of the water. Don't get me wrong, rules and regulations are important. And also know your body of water as far as high spots. When I say high spots, sandbars, because Potomac has some, you could be out in the middle, but it'll be 3 feet of water, okay? I'm not saying a boat can't run that, but you get what I'm saying. You don't want to run across an area that has high spots. You didn't know it, you mess up a prop. So definitely know your rules and regulations of the water and know your body of water, okay? But where to start fishing, and please, by all means, if you can, eventually get some good electronics. I'm not saying I own the best or anything like that, but I have a Lowrance Elite 9 Ti 2, and that thing is amazing to me, and I know there's better ones out there. And no, you don't have to start out with something like that, but get something that can show you a map, show you, and kayak guys, you can do that too as far as getting good electronics eventually. But you want something that definitely show you a map, show your contour lines. I use Lowrance because they run Insight Genesis, which is you can make your own mapping, and people can upload and everyone sees everyone's map, not your trail, but the map layout of the body of water, which is really good. Springtime, this is almost pretty much the same as a kayak fisherman. Guys on the boat, I definitely recommend beating the bank, whether it's square bills, lipless crankbaits, chatterbaits, throwing Texas rig, throwing little worms, a bunch of different baits out there that you can use to beat the bank. But again, I would definitely focus on your overhang trees, things like that. And again, I would fish. Try your best to fish places that everyone doesn't always fish. Because when you have places that these fish are getting heavily pressured all the time, yes, it might be a structure, a piece of cover that they like to relate to in that area. But eventually they're going to know, oh, that's the crankbait. Maybe I know the name, of course, but I've seen that before. My buddy got yanked up by that. You know what I'm saying? I don't try to fish the same place everyone else everyone else fishes. That's just my personal opinion. Not saying you can't catch them, but I'm not going to sit here and struggle in a spot where I know everyone throws a bait here every single time they go out. You know what I mean? So I would definitely try your best to find places that other people aren't normally fishing. And that's actually more fun to me. I like going and find a new place. So springtime, I kind of, like I said, I think that same concept goes with anyone as far as pond, kayak, or boat. Beat the bank, hitting trees, hitting high vegetation. But my personal preference when it comes to, or a little hot, like when it gets a little warmer. Because springtime, it's almost, you go out there almost any time and you can pretty much go crush them. Not saying you can't do that any time of the year, but springtime is definitely money. What I recommend, like I said, you get a decent unit that can show you some mapping. What I recommend is you learn how to fish offshore. I'm not saying offshore, you're miles and miles out in the middle of nowhere. I'm not saying fishing offshore is like super far away. Instead of beating the bank, you can come about 50 yards offshore, maybe 100 yards offshore, and using your electronics, using your mapping technology, it'll show you contour lines, and that's one thing you have to do your homework on as far as learning how to read contour lines. And maybe later on I'll do a video on that as well. But the contour lines are going to show you how the land lays out underwater. Once it gets a little warmer, these fish are going to pull off of the hot, shallow water. They're going to pull out into deeper water. Sometimes it could be suspended above trees, and sometimes it could be out on that structure underneath the water, further out away from land. Okay? So that's really important when it comes to having electronics. Things like that you can find a lot easier on a boat. Not saying you can't do it on a kayak, Sorry, bank fishermen, you can't do that. Sorry. But that's that. I would definitely recommend you guys learning how to graph offshore to find those offshore spots that most people aren't fishing. Most people want to just beat the bank. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. But if you want to, like I said, get away from areas where everyone else, like 10 boats just went by those same 3 docks, those same, 4 trees. You want to step off and do something a little different. You're probably going to catch fish a lot easier than the guys who are always beating the bank. You know what I mean? When I say easier, the fish who are sitting offshore may not have seen, certain type of baits that you're going to throw, things like that. Yes, you have certain bodies of water across the nation that offshore fishing, it is what it is, and that's all people do, period, which is great. I'm glad a lot of people learn how to fish offshore. But then you have places, some places that I go that I see majority of people fishing the bank, and I'll be off the shore a lot more and catch more fish. So it's all situational. But at the same time, definitely learn your electronics, learn how to graph offshore, and learn how to catch those fish offshore. I would definitely use something like this here. Get your DT16, which dives about 16 feet deep, and you throw it in about 14 or 10 to 14 feet of water. It dives 16 because you want it down there digging around. Something like that, or a Strike King 6XD is real good. Those baits definitely caught me a lot of fish. But that's it, guys. I want to keep this video super short. Happy 4th of July to everyone. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to their channel. Give it a thumbs up if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.